العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدم. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، أما بعد. طيب, last week, or the last lesson, we went through Bab Tayammum. And today, inshallah, we'll start on Bab Izalat Najasah. From Bab Tayammum, we studied different masail. We said Tayammum is a badal, it's a substitute, and it replaces al-wudu. And there are certain situations where a person uses a tayammum instead of wudu. Whether they don't have access to water, meaning they don't have water, or they have water, like they cannot use the water due to not having enough water. They don't use the water for wudu due to not having enough to drink from, or to have water, like for health reasons, they cannot use the water, such as if there's a wound on their body or on the limbs that you would make wudu or ghusl on. And we talked about an important mas'ala at the beginning of the chapter, which was what? Is it a mubih or a rafi'? طيب, who can explain the mas'ala as it is? تفضل.
If it's a rafi', then at that point you believe that the tayammum...
First and foremost, what does it mean when they say rafi'? That is a rafi' and that is a mubih.
So it makes it permissible, one actually just lifts the...
Naam. The rafi', it removes the impurity at that particular time, or the need for as long as that need is there. What about mubih?
It makes the action permissible.
Nah, makes that act permissible. Hassan. طيب, what about ثمرة الخلاف? Ja'far, the benefit of the khilaf. Is it just the khilaf in terms of wording, or is it an actual khilaf? طيب, give me an example. If we say it is a mubih, and they make wudu, if they make tayammum at the time of dhuhr, they can pray dhuhr. Ahsant. They can't carry on that wudu until asr time. Ahsant. Naam, the same tayammum, as long as the reason that you made the tayammum is still there. Ahsantum. And which is the stronger opinion, wallahu a'lam? That it is a rafi'. Ahsant. The Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَهُوَ بَدَلُ الطَّهَارَةِ الْمَاءِ. It is a replacement for the purification of wudu. إِذَا دَخَلَ وَقْتُ فَرِيدَةٍ. Who can explain that? إِذَا دَخَلَ, if the time of the farida comes in. Abdillah. Naam, and the opinion of the mu'allif, إذا دخل وقت فريضة, meaning if it's naam, that is a condition. So if it's مثلا Salatul Duha time, if it's at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, and someone makes tayammum to make Salatul Duha, and then dhuhr comes in half an hour, they cannot use the tahara that they made or the tayammum that they made half an hour or 45 minutes ago. Is that understood? What about أو أبيحت النافلة أو أبيحت نافلة?
According to the opinion that it's mubih, they would have to, if it's in a time that you're not allowed to pray that, they have to wait for that to finish.
Naam, they'd have to wait for that to finish. طيب, ومن وجد ماء يكفي بعد طهره, whoever finds water that is enough for some of his tahara. مثلا, someone needs to make wudu. تيمم, he makes wudu بعد استعماله, after using it. Who can explain this part of the book? Mahdi?
The scenario is that if the person has sufficient amount of water, he performs wudu, and that which is not, if the water runs out, he performs the rest of the tayammum. And the other thing is that you do.
So, Afan, say that again.
So the person uses the water, the sufficient water to do the wudu, and once the person has run out, he does tayammum for the rest.
نعم, لكن Surah Al-Masal is slightly before that. So you say, for example, someone that's got water, لكن that water is not enough for him to complete his wudu. صح? And then you say that he should use whatever he's got, and then after that perform tayammum. صح? طيب. And you said the other?
And the other thing is that you do tayammum from the get-go.
نعم, you do tayammum from the get-go, لأن there's no point in using that. طيب, أحسن. ويجب طلب الماء في رحله وقربه وبدلاله أو بدلالة. حكيم.
It's wise for the person to look for the water in like what's around, by asking around.
By asking or looking in his car or anywhere nearby. طيب. فإن نسي قدرته عليه وتيمم أعاد.
If he forgets and he then remembers that he actually have water, I think that's what it is, right?
He forgets he had water.
If he forgets he has water, then he does tayammum and prays. If he remembers, he would then have to repeat that wudu and so on.
Yeah, according to the book, no. طيب, وجدت ما بسبب له خلال موجود وكذا التوتير الموجود. طيب, ويشتغل له أن يتيمم من حدث غير فإنه. طيب, لم يجز. نعم, يجوز نية لم يتيمم من حدث أو غيره. فإن نوى أحدها لم يجزئه. جزاك الله خير. فإن نوى, if he intends for one of them, if he makes the intention for one of them, لم يجزئه. And this is to the sisters. فإن نوى, if a person, this is towards the end of the chapter, if a person intends أحدها, meaning one of these different types of hadith, however many types we studied, if he intends to remove one of them, لم يجزئه عن الآخر, it won't suffice from the other one. And وإن نوى, and if he intends نفلا أو أطلق لم يصلي به فرضا. Who can explain that? If he say it again? For wudu only. صح. نعم. So if he requires tayammum, if he requires ghusl, like he makes the intention for only lifting wudu, then he, according to the mu'allif rahimahullah, he cannot do that. طيب. وإن نوى نفلا أو أطلق, if he intends a sunnah prayer, أو أطلق, or he doesn't intend for anything, he doesn't intend anything specific, لم يصلي به فرضا. He doesn't pray, he's not allowed to pray a fard. You can explain that part. Literally the sentence after you, the one after you explain. وَإِن نَوَى نَفْلًا, if he intends a nafl with his tayammum. نعم, that is نعم صح, لكن that's only if he makes the intention for nafl and not the wajib. صح? لكن if he makes, because they have tartib, they have an order of things. So the wajib salah is the highest of them all. Fardu ayn, and then fardu kifaya, and then nawafil, and so on. طيب, ويبطل التيمم بخروج الوقت. Sisters, ويبطل, and tayammum is nullified بخروج الوقت, with the exiting of time. What is the surah al-mas'ala? What does this mean? If someone makes wudu for tayammum for Salatul Dhuhr, they can't carry it on to the next salah. So, as soon as the time of the time of the salah finishes, let's say Dhuhr finishes at 3 o'clock. It starts at 1 o'clock, then finishes at 3 o'clock. As soon as it's 3 o'clock, then the time of the salah finishes. The time of that tayammum finishes, meaning he can no longer pray asr or any other salah or any other act with that one because it is now invalid. That is according to which opinion? If you say it, according to Hanabli, if you say it is a mubih. طيب, there was a qa'idah that we studied at that point, which was what? If you look in your matan, you'll see that there was a qa'idah at that point. في المذهب دخول الوقت شرط للتيمم مبطل للتيمم. So basically, it is a condition for you to be able to make wudu that your salah enters in the first place, that the time of salah enters in the first place. If the time of salah enters, then you can make tayammum. That is a condition. And on the opposite side, as long as when the time ends, then your wudu, your tayammum is invalid from that point onwards. طيب. يقول الشيخ رحمه الله: باب إزالة النجاسة يجزئ في غسل النجاسات كلها إذا كانت على الأرض غسلة واحدة تذهب بعين النجاسة. The Shaykh rahimahullah now goes into the next chapter. باب إزالة النجاسة. باب إزالة النجاسة. And this is the second to last chapter in Kitab al-Tahara. There's only Bab al-Hayd after this. And although this is connected to, or the previous chapters are connected to Bab al-Najasa, like why do the fuqaha mention Bab al-Najasa before Bab al-Hayd? They say because Bab al-Izalat al-Najasa is general to male and female, general to everyone. The ruling of removing impurities is general to everybody. As for Bab al-Hayd, then that is khas bin nisa, that is specific to nisa. Therefore, they put this chapter of removing najasat before Bab al-Hayd. In this chapter, the Shaykh rahimahullah will talk about two masail in general. Bayan al-najasat, to clarify the things that are najis, wa anwa'aha, or wa anwa'iha, and its types, wa ahkamiha, and its rulings. So he's going to mention that these are from the najasat, and he's also going to mention that these things are from the tahirat. Then he's going to talk about bayanu kayfa tuzalu hadihi najasat, how these najasat are to be removed. How these najasat are to be removed. So this chapter is pretty straightforward. You've just got to know what is a najasa and how is it cleaned. So you will the Shaykh is going to start with the second one first, of how to clean the najasat. Some of the najasat, he's going to split the najasat into things that are mughallada, mutawassita, and so on. Mukhaffafa, or that have been lightened, and so on, as we shall see. Babu izalati najasa. Najasa is of two types. Najasa ayniyya and najasa hukmiyya. And najasa ayniyya is the najasa that is actually found in the thing itself, in the najasa itself, that cannot be purified. مثلا الكلب, الخنزير, that which comes out of the human body's parts, the urine and so on, but not answering the call of nature. These are najasat ayniyah. There's no way that you can possibly purify it. It will always remain najis. And then there's najasa hukmiyya, and najasa al-hukmiyya. So it is najis in terms of its ruling. And this is التي يمكن تطهيرها, التي يمكن تطهيرها. مثلا, a child urinates on your garment, on your thobe, on your hijab. We don't say that thobe from now on, or that hijab is najasa ayniyya. La, it is najasa hukmiyya, meaning at the moment it's najis, like it's possible to what? It is possible to purify it. The next mas'ala, ta'rif al-najasa. Al-najasa is كل عين يجب التطهر منها. كل عين يجب التطهر منها. Every ayn, every object or thing that it is wajib to purify yourself from. The actual najasa. And also, the qa'idah of the chapter, alhamdulillah, al-aslu fil ashya'i at-tahara. Alhamdulillah. Al-aslu fil ashya'i at-tahara. قال جل وعلا هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. In Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 29. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. Allah Jalla wa Ala is the one that created for you, lakum, for you, all that is in or on the earth. And that is fi siyaq al-imtinan. Allah Jalla wa Ala mentions this in mentioning His blessings over us, or one of the blessings that Allah Jalla wa Ala has given us. And that means that it is general. Then the Shaykh says rahimahullah, يجزئ في غسل النجاسات كلها إذا كانت على الأرض غسلة واحدة تذهب بعين النجاسة. The Shaykh rahimahullah is now going to say to us how to clean najasat. صفة تطهير النجاسات. صفة تطهير النجاسات. That is the first mas'ala. Where he says يجزئ, it will suffice. And based on how he's written it here, the Imam rahimahullah, the mu'allif, najasat are of two types in terms of what they touch. Najasatun ala al-ard wa najasatun ala ghayri al-ard. Najasa that is on the ard, on the floor, on the ground, and najasa that is not on the ground. As for the najasa that is not on the ground, ala ghayr al-ard, we're going to see that in a minute, inshallah. Lakin he starts off with the najasa that is on the ground. He says, يُجْزِئُ فِي غَسْلِ النَّجَاسَاتِ كُلِّهَا. What will suffice for cleaning all types of najasat, كُلِّهَا, all types of najasat, على الأرض, that is on the ground, غَسْلَةٌ واحدة, one wash, one washing. طيب. تذهب بعين النجاسة, as long as the athar or the ayn of the najasa is gone. As long as تذهب, that one ghasla, as long as it gets rid of the najasa as it is, whether it's the smell of it, the look of it, and the smell and the look of it, and the actual najasa itself, as long as it gets rid of that. يجزئ الإجزاء هو, write down, الإجزاء أو المجزئ ما تبرأ به الذمة, ما تبرأ به الذمة ويسقط به الطلب, ويسقط به الطلب. So al-mujzi is ma tabra'u bihi dhimma, meaning your dhimma, your conscience is no longer what? There's no longer a burden on it. So you're free from burdening. وَيَسْقُطُ بِهِ الطَّلَبْ, and the command for you to purify this, or the command for you to pray this, or to do this ibadah has now fallen from off your shoulders. the command for you to fulfill the act is no longer there. So the Shaykh is saying, rahimahullah, if there's a najasa on the floor, it is sufficient for you, Ya Abdullah, to wash it once, as long as the najasa goes away. Surah al-Mas'ala, there's urine on the floor. Bilash Surah al-Mas'ala. The hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The dalil is in the Surah al-Mas'ala, or the Surah al-Mas'ala is in the dalil. A man, an Arabi, as you all know, came and urinated in a part of the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then the Prophet ﷺ told them to allow him to complete his wudu, whatever he was doing. Then when he finished, he commanded them to دعا بدلو من ماء فصبه عليه. The Prophet ﷺ called for a part of water, some water, and the water was brought to him, or the water was brought near to the najasa, and it was poured over the najasa. So the najasa was there in that place, and the Prophet ﷺ commanded for it to be cleaned with that water. And the Prophet ﷺ did not limit the number of times it should be washed. He did not say thalathan or arba'an or khamsan or whatever it might be. Lakin the Prophet ﷺ commanded them once. So we take from that what? Ghaslatun wahida. So that hadith is a dalil for this specific mas'ala, and it's an example for this mas'ala. طيب. Understood? And na'am. Yujzi'u, we understand what yujzi'u is. And najasat, we don't know what they are yet because we haven't studied the najasat. Lakin, he said, ala al-ard, if that najasa is on the floor, on the ground, yakfi, what is enough? Ghaslatun wahida. Meaning you don't have to go 2 or 3 or 4 times. Lakin with the qaid of تذهب بعين النجاسة. So you can put on top of تذهب بعين النجاسة qaid. أي بقيد أن تذهب النجاسة. As long as the najasa goes away. طيب. Then the Shaykh says رحمه الله وعلى غيرها وعلى غيرها, the damir of ha غيرها goes back to where? الأرض. أحسنتم. وعلى غيرها على غير الأرض 7 times. A is to be washed 7 times. إحداهن بتراب في نجاسة كلب وخنزير. There's a few masail in this portion. ويجزئ عن التراب أشنان ونحوه. طيب في نجاسة غيرها. طيب the Shaykh says رحمه الله وفي نجاسة غيرها. طيب the Shaykh says رحمه الله, if there's a najasa على غيرها على غير الأرض, طيب, then it is to be washed 7 times. أي 7 غسلات. It is to be washed 7 times. بتراب, with sand, with dust or mud, if the najasa is the najasa of a kelb or a khinzir. So before we talked about najasa is of how many types? على الأرض وعلى غير الأرض. على الأرض, we already studied that you wash it once and khalas, that is over and done with. على غير الأرض is of 3 types. على غير الأرض, it could be on your body, it could be on your clothing, it could be on the place of prayer, it could be on a vessel, a cup, a pot, a pan, wherever it might be. Number 1, نجاسة مغلظة. مغلظة can be explained as the highest form of najasa. And the second is, and that najasa, and right next to it, i.e. the najasa of the kelb. The najasa of the kelb. Mughallada, why has it been toughened? Why has that najasa been toughened? We shall see. We have to wash it 7 times. That's why it has been toughened. The next, najasatun mutawassita. Afwan. before the mutawassita, to make it easy for yourselves, write najasa mukhaffafa, the najasa that has been lightened. Lightened, meaning that, and basically is one. Surah al-Mas'ala is one, which is the urine of a small child. We shall see in the matan, a small boy who hasn't reached weaning yet. He's still eating, he's still drinking only milk. He's not dependent on food. Under the age of 2 or under the age of 1 and so on. With that, his urine, you just what? Sprinkle water on it. And the third is what? Najasatul mutawassita. Najasatul mutawassita. And that najasa of the mutawassita is anything other than the first two types. And it's difficult to give an example because it's anything literally other than the first two types. مثلا دم الحيض, urine, أكرمكم الله. Anything else that comes out of the human body. Wadi, and so on. How many types have we got for najasa that is ala ghayr al-ard, not on the ground? 3. What's the first? Mughallada. Mughallada has one example, which is what? Al-kalb. And according to the mu'allif, al-khinzir. طيب. Secondly, mukhaffafa. And that is the burden has been, the burden of cleaning that najasa has been lightened. And that is what? The urine of a baby that hasn't reached, is not eating food dependently on its own. Na'am. The third, najasa mutawassita, and that is like the medium type of najasa in terms of cleaning it. So mughallada, mutawassita and mukhaffafa, that is min hayth, from the angle of what? The cleaning of it, how you clean it. Is that understood? طيب. So the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَعَلَى غَيْرِهَا, and other than the ard, whether it's on your clothing, whether it's on your vessels and so on, sab'un is to be washed 7 times. Any other type of najasa. إِحْدَاهَا بِتُرَاب, one of them with turab, فِي نَجَاسَةِ كَلْبٍ. As for the najasa of the kalb and the khinzir, the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, you wash it 7 times, and one of them is what? With sand or mud or earth. طيب. Kalb, and the dalil for that is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, طهور إناء أحدكم, the purification of how to clean the ina or the vessel of one of you. إذا ولغ الكلب فيه, if the kalb or the dog puts his tongue into it, his saliva touches it, أن يغسله 7 مرات أولاهن بتراب, and the first of it being what? Turab. So that is the evidence for the najasa al-mughallada, which is the najasa of the kalb, if he puts his tongue into the vessel that is around. طيب. And the evidence for that is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he commanded that if the kalb touches or puts his mouth inside a vessel, then wash it 7 times, and the first one being with what? Being with turab, earth. Al-wulugh is what? إدخال اللسان في الإناء. إدخال اللسان في الإناء. الولوغ إذا ولغ. الولوغ means إدخال اللسان في الإناء. Putting the tongue into the pan or the vessel in general. That's واضح, صح? كلب. لكن the Shaykh says رحمه الله وخنزير. وخنزير. So the question is, where's the evidence for the najasa, for the khinzir being washed 7 times if he touches the vessel? The answer is al-qiyas. They take from it the qiyas. قياس على ماذا؟ على الكلب. قياس على الكلب. Why? Because rather the khinzir, the pig, his najasa is a lot worse than what? Than the najasa of the kalb. And also because it is a hayawan that is haram to eat. And also, it is a hayawan that is haram to eat. And there's a second opinion in the mas'ala, which is that there is no qiyas on the khinzir. We can't do qiyas of the khinzir to the kalb. As I said, I'm not going to go into all of the masail in terms of the khilaf, like with this mas'ala, it is simple to understand and is mentioned all the time. The second opinion is that khinzir is not included in the washing or the najasah of the mughallada, for various reasons. Number one, النص ورد في الكلب فقط. The nas, the text, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ mentions the what? The kalb only, and it doesn't mention any other najasa. وَلَوْ أَرَادَ الشَّارِعُ إِلْحَاقَهُ لَبَيَّنَهُ. And if the shari' wanted it to be cleaned 7 times like the kalb, then the shari' would have clarified it. The sharia would have clarified it. Number 2, if we say that the illah is that it is because it is haram to eat, then there are other animals that are also haram to eat, like predators, as we shall see. And they won't, and the fuqaha won't say that if a lion or tiger or any other predator touches anything, then we wash it 7 times. Also, Dibbul Hadith, research has shown that the najasa of the kalb carries certain bacteria or certain dirt that only the turab can take off. And that isn't the case with the khinzir. So this second opinion says that the khinzir's najasa is not mutawassita, not mughallada, rather mutawassita. أحسنتم. طيب. Then the Shaykh says رحمه الله ويجزئ عن تراب أشنان ونحوه. ويجزئ عن تراب. So it is as if someone said, طيب, you said turab, like, what if we can't find turab? Or what if, can we use anything else? It is as if someone said, can we use anything else? Or what if we don't find turab? The Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَيُجْزِئُ عَنْ تُرَابٍ, and what will suffice from turab, meaning not needing to use turab, mud or earth, is ushnan وَنَحْوُهُ. Ushnan is a type of plant that is used to clean things. And we can include it as shampoo. وَنَحْوُهُ يعني shampoo, soap, and things that are similar to this. Dettol, bleach, things like that. That will come under وَنَحْوُهُ. طيب. And there's another opinion on this, which is that we can't use anything but turab. We can't use anything but turab, due to the following. Number one, because the Prophet ﷺ specified turab, mud or earth. Number two, that there were other cleaning products during the time of the Prophet ﷺ that could have been used, like in the Prophet ﷺ did not direct us to it. وَلَوْ كَانَتْ مُجْزِئَةً, if it was something that would suffice, then he would have clarified it, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And also research shows that there's bacteria or najasa in the walq of the kalb, in the saliva or the tongue of the kalb, that only turab or mud or earth can get rid of. طيب. وفي نجاسة غيرها سبع بلا تراب. وفي نجاسة غيرها في نجاسة غيرهما. Hima, what does it go back to? The kalb and the khinzir. نعم. And for any other najasa other than the kalb and the khinzir, sab'un, it is to be washed 7 times. Bila turabin, lakin without using mud, earth, and so on. So only washing it 7 times. Surah al-Mas'ala, مثلا, an adult or a child urinates on your garment. According to the Mu'allif rahimahullah, according to the madhab, you need to wash it 7 times. What if the najasa goes away on the 3rd go? You still need to wash it what? 7 times. You still need to wash it 7 times. Lakin with this one, you do not need to use turab or sand or mud or dust. And the evidence for that is the hadith of Abdillah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, where he said, "Umirna bi ghasl al-anjasi sab'an." We've been commanded to clean the najasat sab'an, 7 times. 7 times. And if a companion, as we studied in Usul al-Fiqh, if a companion says, "Min as-sunnati kada" or "Umirna bi kada," then that means it has a hukmu al-raf'i. It has a hukum that goes back to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that is the mas'ala and that is the dalil. Who can explain the surah al-mas'ala?
If you get any type of najasa on your clothes or something, you just have to wash it 7 times, even if the najasa was like the 3rd one or something.
Naam. And the evidence?
Because of the narration that
We've been commanded to wash the najasat 7 times. There's another opinion, which is the stronger opinion, that you only need to wash the najasa for as long as the najasa is there. Meaning if you clean it on the 1st go, or the 2nd, or the 3rd, khalas, that suffices. You do not need to repeat it over and over again. And the evidence for that is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where the Arabi that urinated in the masjid, the Prophet ﷺ commanded him to wash it what? Once. The Prophet ﷺ commanded him to wash it once. طيب, لكن you still need to answer the question, the hadith. أمرنا بغسل الأنجاس 7. We've been commanded to wash it 7 times. الجواب. Which عدد?
The 7 is ta'abbud, like the rak'at, the salah. There's no hikmah behind it, so then it's maqsood bil adad.
صح, then that means we have to wash it 7 times. So you're saying that any najasa that we come across, we need to wash it 7 times?
If it's the kalb al-khanzir.
Huh?
The kalb al-khanzir.
لا, but this is not the mas'ala of the kalb. This is different. This is saying any other najasa. مثلا someone urinates on your hijab or your khamis. You need to wash it 7 times. بالدليل هذا الحديث أمرنا بغسل الأنجاس 7. We need to wash it 7 times.
Would you say it's basically of adab, it's not really a command of where it's wajib for you to do it, it's a command of recommendation.
لا, it's not أمرنا a command.
you said that it's wajib to wash it until it goes sunnah sometimes.
لا, because أمرنا, we've been commanded بغسل 7 is specifically mentioned.
The question was the authenticity of the hadith.
أحسنت. الحديث ضعيف. الحديث is ضعيف. إمام الباني said رحمه الله لم أجد بهذا اللفظ ولا أعلم حديثا مرفوعا صحيحا في الأمر بغسل النجاسات 7. This hadith doesn't even have a sanad. It doesn't even have a sanad. طيب. So any type of najasa other than that is, other than the kalb and other than the mukhaffafa that we shall see, you can wash it for as long as you need to. So even if you put it into the washing machine, خلاص, يكفي هذا. يكفي هذا. Then the Shaykh says, رحمه الله, the mu'allif, ولا يطهر متنجس بشمس ولا ريح ولا دلك ولا استحالة. طيب. He mentions a few things here. He mentions now, the mas'ala that he's now going on to is, we said that najasa needs to be washed. We haven't studied the types of najasat. Like we said that the najasa needs to be washed. Sah? If it is the najasa of a kalb touching a vessel, whatever it might be, 7 times. Any other najasa that is on the earth, on the ground, to be washed what? Ghasla wahida, until it goes. And any other najasa as well is to be washed until the najasa is there. Sah? Like what the mu'allif up to now has been talking about is water. Sah? Now he's saying, is there anything else that can be used to purify or to get rid of najasa other than ma? And the answer is la. He says, وَلَا يَطْهُرُ مُتَنَجِّسٌ. Anything that has become najis cannot be purified bishamsin, with the sun, وَلَا رِيحٍ, or wind, or dalkin, or rubbing it, وَلَا استحالة, and it changing, doing istihala. As for the sun, you understand, wind, dalk, and rubbing it, all of that is pretty clear. So he says, rahimahullah, na'am, so that is the suratul mas'ala. So according to the madhab, only water can what? Purify najasat. قال جل وعلا وأنزلنا من الماء وأنزلنا من السماء ماء طهورا. And that water is there to purify. Then the Prophet ﷺ commanded one of his wives to clean the hayd from the thobe. تحته ثم تقرصه بالماء. تحته ثم تقرصه, to rub it off and then to wash it with water. ثم تنضحه, and then to what? To sprinkle the water off or to dry it. Lakin the mahal shahid is that the Prophet ﷺ commanded her to use water. So according to that, there's nothing else that can be used to do the removing of the najasa. ولا دلك ولا استحالة. What is the meaning of استحالة? استحالة means, write down, تحول نجاسة أو تحول النجاسة من عين إلى عين أخرى. تحول النجاسة من عين إلى عين أخرى. So istihala is when something changes from its form to something else, changes to something else. مثلا, if you're out camping and you bring together firewood and then you also bring together dung of animals and so on, طيب, and then you try to set a fire. Once you set the fire, that will turn into what? Smoke, fire. And then even when the fire dies out, what will it be? Ashes. That is the meaning of istihala. Or akramakumullah, مثلا, let's say there's feces on the floor, and then due to the extreme weather, due to it being hot, or due to the rain, whatever it might be, it changes. It turns into something else. And also another surah al-mas'ala is gelatine. Gelatine is what? When it is put through such a process that it changes its form, and then they mix about 10 other chemicals and 20 other ingredients, and then it comes out as a what? As a sweet. So you would no longer say that sweet is gelatine. You can say it was made from gelatine, like you can't say it is gelatine, can you? That is the meaning of istihala. So according to the madhab, none of these things can clean other than water. And there's another opinion. والقول الثاني في المسألة يجوز إزالة النجاسة بأي شيء كان سواء بالماء أو بغيره. سواء بالماء أو بغيره. And the second opinion is that it is permissible to remove najasa with anything, whether it's with water or other than water. Because the maqsood is what? Izalatul najasa. The maqsood is that the najasa... Ikhwani, brothers, can you please move forward? So that sisters, if you could try and move forward a bit, so sisters can come in and out. Naam. Naam, there's a lot more space. طيب نعم. So the second opinion is that anything that you use to remove the najasa is fine as long as the najasa is removed. لأن the maqsood is إزالة النجاسة. That is the maqsood, which is the izala of the najasa. Now also on top of that, there are evidences from the Sharia in which we find that other than water has cleaned or has purified the najasa. From them, al-istijmar bil-hijara. When we were in qada al-haja, the istijmar, who remembers what istijmar is? Istijmar is using stones or leaves or tissues or anything like that to purify oneself, akramakumullah, and not using water. طيب, that person, is it not considered that he's removed the najasa? Allah, it's considered that he's removed the najasa. Fadda. Also, secondly, one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the female companions, said that the tail on her hijab is extremely long, and sometimes she walks on top of or near places that are filthy. He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يُطَهِّرُهُ مَا بَعْدَهُ. يُطَهِّرُهُ, whatever comes after it will clean it. Meaning that if your hijab or your garment goes on top of najasa, then whatever comes after it will what? Will clean it. Na'am. Is that understood? The third mas'ala, or the third dalil for this mas'ala, is the one that is to come now, which is وَلَا اسْتِحَالَ غَيْرَ الْخَمْرَةِ. غَيْرَ الْخَمْرَةِ. So he said استحالة was تحول شيء من شيء إلى آخر. صح؟ تحول النجاسة إلى من عين إلى عين أخرى. It is the changing of the najasa, changed from something to something else. So that is not permissible for any type of najasa. صح? Except the Shaykh says rahimahullah, al-khamr, except for intoxicants, al-khamr. So al-khamr, if it changes on its own, what do we understand from here? If the khamr changes on its own, if istihala takes place, changing on its own, what? Then it becomes pure. It becomes pure. Naam. And the evidence for that is the hadith of Anas radiyallahu anhu, when he said, النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الخمر تتخذ خلا فقال لا. Is it to be taken as khal? Is it to be changed into khal? Vinegar, naam. And the Prophet ﷺ said la. Like in another hadith, we find that the Prophet ﷺ permitted that if the khamr changes to hawala, if it changes to vinegar, then it becomes permissible. Lakin, that is if it changes on its own. If it changes on its own. Lakin, as for if it changes with a person changing it, meaning using ingredients and using something or placing it somewhere in order for it to change, then it becomes haram. So the istihala is an evidence, or the istihala of the khamr becoming tahir bi ijma' ahl ilm. That is an evidence that you don't only need water to use to purify najasat. Is that understood? طيب. ولا خمرة فإن خللت, if it is left on its own to change, like ferment or something like that is called. If it changes on its own, أو تنجس دهن فإن خللت عفوا, if it is changed, if a person goes out of his way and he changes it, and tries to make it become vinegar or something else, أو تنجس دهن مائع, or some sort of liquid, whether it's butter or oil, if a najasa falls into it, لم يطهر, then it won't become najis. It won't become لم يطهر. It doesn't become pure. It does not become pure when خفي موضع. طيب. فإن خلت في النفس طيب. With regards to khamr, there's a mas'ala that the scholars talk about, which is it najis or is it tahir? Is it najis or is it tahir? القول الأول is that it is najis, due to the verse of Allah, the ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 90, إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام رجز من عمل الشيطان. رجز من عمل الشيطان. So Allah Jalla wa Ala called it what? Rijz. So this evidence the fuqaha use to prove that al-khamr is najis. And the second opinion is that al-khamr is not najis First and foremost, الأصل في الأشياء الطهارة. The أصل في الأشياء is طهارة. And there's nothing or no evidence, clear evidence, taken khamr out of that asl. There is no clear evidence taken the khamr out of that. Also, when khamr was made haram, when the evidence or the ayah was revealed making khamr haram, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they spilt it on the floor and on the streets of Medina. And the wajh dalala is, if it was najis, then the Prophet ﷺ would have clarified to them or given them a solution for getting rid of it, because it is not permissible to put najasah on the floor or on the ground. And the third reason is that when it became haram, the Prophet ﷺ did not command the companions to wash the vessels that the alcohol or the khamr was stored. Naam. The third one, when khamr was made haram, the Prophet ﷺ did not command the companions to wash the vessels or where the khamr was stored. He did not command them to wash where the vessels were stored. As for the verse, or in reply to the ayah, the istidlal of the ayah, rijz min amal shaytan, then rijz, the najasa of rijz is najasa ma'nawiyya. It is not najasa ayniyya, it is a najasa ma'nawiyya. Min amal shaytan, bidalil annahu min amal shaytan. It is from the actions of shaytan that will cause a person to turn away from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wa rijza fahjur. إنما المشركون najisun. Along those, on that side of the najasa ma'nawiyya. طبعا, the fuqaha that say it is haram, the jumhur or the majority say that sahih, the Prophet ﷺ did not command them to wash it, because that was something that would have been known anyway. That is something that they would have washed. طيب, على أي حال, ثمرة الخلاف, the khilaf is not ma'nawi only. Afwan, the khilaf is not lafzi, it is ma'nawi. And you can put certain masail in there. For example, there are مثلا the utur, perfumes that are used to make what? Alcohol. They have some sort of alcohol. Some level of, or certain amount of alcohol. If we say that khamr is najis, then it's not permissible to use this. To use these types of utur, because otherwise it means you're cleaning yourself with najis, sah? طيب. Although they can also turn around and say, la, istihala has taken place. طيب. Lakin if we say that it is not najis, then it's fine to use these alcohols, because the perfumes with a certain amount of alcohol, because it is not najis. Because it is not najis. Naam, if it's not a muskir, if it's not alcohol, if it's only alcohol by name, then it doesn't come under this. Sum yani. So they die after they get drunk? Yani side effects. Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam. Like anyway, this masala will come under that khilaf. In any case, these sorts of masail, And there's a mas'ala that is to come as well, dam, is it najis or not? These sorts of masail, the fuqaha differ over. Some sort of duhun, butter or oil or whatever it might be. Then if it is jamid, if it is still, and if it is not liquid, in liquid form, then فَأَلْقُوا مَا حَوْلَهُ, wherever it touches or anything around it, then throw it away. Meaning, the rest is still pure. The rest is still pure. Like if it is ma'i', if it is runny, then don't go near it. طيب. وإن خفي موضع نجاسة غسل حتى يجزم بزواله. The next mas'ala is, if a person comes across najasa, so you know that there's a bit of najasa on your thobe or on the vessel that you're using or the jug that you're using for wudu, wherever it might be, you know that there's a najasa that has gone in it. Lakin you're not sure of the part that the najasa has fallen onto. You are غُسِّلَ حَتَّى يُجْزَمْ بِزَوَالِهِ. You wash it until you're certain that there's no najasa there. Until you're what? Certain, or that you have ghalabatu dhan, that there is no najasa in there. Why? Because you're sure that there's a najasa there. Lakin somehow you don't know exactly where the najasa is. You do your ijtihad and you try your best to find out where the najasa is. Lakin the safer option is, if it is one garment, that you wash the whole garment. Sah? Mathalan, if it is on one side, if it is on one of the arms, but you don't know which arm it was, what do you do? The easiest and the best option is to what? To wash the whole thobe. To wash the whole thobe. And we came across a mas'ala similar to this in Babul Miyat, sah? Where he said, if you have najasa of 10 thobes, if there are 10 thobes and you're sure that 9 of them are najis, or one of them is pure, then you pray how many times? 10 times, so that you're sure you prayed with a pure one. Lakin back there we said what? You try your best to find out which one is pure, and then you pray with that. Same thing here. You try your best to find out where the najasa is, and if you're able to wash all of it, then wash all of it. طيب. ويطهر بول غلام لم يأكل الطعام بنضحه. And this is the third type of najasa, which is a najasa al-mukhaffafa. A najasa al-mukhaffafa. And it is the najasa that the way of cleaning it has been lightened. And a small child was brought to the Prophet ﷺ, فَأَجْلَسَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ ﷺ فِي حَجْرِهِ. The Prophet ﷺ sat him down in his lap, فَبَالَ عَلَى ثَوْبِهِ فَدَعَى بِمَاءٍ فَنَضَحَهُ وَلَمْ يَغْسِلْهُ. So the child, the small baby, urinated on the lap of the Prophet ﷺ on his thobe, and the Prophet called for some water, and he sprinkled that water on top of it. Meaning he did not wash the thobe. He did not wash the thobe. Also another hadith says, يُغْسَلُ مِنْ بَوْلِ الْجَارِيَةِ وَيُغَشُّ مِنْ بَوْلِ الْغُلَامِ. You wash the bowl or the urine of the small baby girl, and you sprinkle water on top of the urine of the small boy. طبعا that is before they are dependent on food. Then the Shaykh says, رحمه الله, وَيُعْفَى فِي غَيْرِ مَائِعٍ وَمَطْعُومٍ عَنْ يَسِيرِ دَمٍ نَجِسٍ من حيوان طاهر. طيب. So the Shaykh rahimahullah, in this mas'ala, he talks about, or previously he talked about the different types of najasat, how they should be purified, صح? And he said that they should be washed with water. طيب. Some of them washed 7 times and others washed once, as long as the najasa goes. Now he's talking about that which is pardoned, that which is exempt from the asl. That which is exempt from the asl, meaning that you don't have to wash 7 times. So he says, وَيُعْفَى فِي غَيْرِ مَائِعٍ وَمَطْعُومٍ عَنْ يَسِيرِ دَمٍ نَجِسٍ. So if there is a small amount of najasa on the body, like, and obviously it is a non-liquid, then the najasa that remains on that part of the body, or on that part of the thobe, it is ma'foon anha. It is to be pardoned. An yasir damin najisin min hayawanin tahir. For example, the small amount of dam that remains or that is on an animal that is pure. So the najis, the dam, from this we understand that dam is najis. The dam that comes out of any other part of the body other than the private parts is dam, is najis. Obviously, the one that comes out of the private parts, where did we study it? Previously, in one of the other chapters. Bab, Nawaqid al-Wudu. Like in any other part of the body we talked about back then, does it nullify the wudu or not? لكن دم النجس من حيوان طاهر. So any other type of najasa, that is, as long as it is a small amount, then it is pardoned. For example, is it called mucus when a person has an accident or something like that and a lot of sadid, pus comes into, مثلا, left on the arm or wherever it might be that they had that injury, and then it goes on the thobe. More often than not, that pus is going to be a small amount or a lot? A small amount. A small amount. So that is going to be pardoned. And also, any najasa or any blood that comes out of the body, as long as it is a small amount of blood, then it is what? Is also considered that is pardon. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Also المشقة تجلب التيسير. المشقة تجلب التيسير. طيب, المسألة, which is dam, is it najis or is it pure? Pure? Najis. ليش najis? ليش pure? Why is it pure?
Based on the قول of Mustaqni Sheikh Suyuti. Based on the قول of some scholars, inshallah, that it is pure, as
there's no evidence to state otherwise. The asl يعني.
No, from the asl.
From the asl. طيب, Abdillah? You said two things. Ijma' and the majority of them. Then that's different. That's very different. حكي أحسنت حكي إجماع has been cited لكن فيه in the four madhahib. So that ijma', is it ijma' shamil? Is it the ijma' that is known in usul al-fiqh? There's no ijma'. So the mas'ala, as you heard, فضلا. If he knew that there was najasa on him, both masail are there. If he knew that if the blood was najis, then it would have been removed, and also it would have nullified his wudu anyway.
Also on top of that, the blood that was inside of the masjid from one of the Sahaba who was bleeding after he passed, there wasn't a command in the hadith for them to wash away that blood.
For them to wash away the blood. طيب. So the mas'ala, كما تفضلتم, as you mentioned, there's that strong khilaf within it. So there's qawlan. Al-qawl al-awwal is that it is najis, and the evidence is the verse of Allah Jalla wa Ala, قُلْ لَا أَجِدُ فِي مَا أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ مُحَرَّمًا عَلَى طَاعِمٍ يَطْعَمُهُ إِلَّا أَنْ يَكُونَ مَيْتَةً أَوْ دَمًا مَسْفُوحًا أَوْ لَحْمَ خِنْزِيرٍ فَإِنَّهُ رِجْزٌ. Ayah number 145, Surah Al-An'am. So it shows that the dam is najis. القول الثاني is that dam is not najis. And the evidence, الأول, the hadith, دم الشهيد, that talks about the blood of the shaheed being pure. دفنوهم في دمائهم. The shuhada of Uhud, the Prophet ﷺ commanded for them to be washed in their blood, often to be buried in their blood, and he did not command for them to be washed. If it was najis, he would have commanded for them to be washed. Secondly, which is an offshoot on that point, there is no difference between the blood that is spilt for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the blood that is spilt for other than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the dam of the shaheed is spilt for the sake of Allah Jalla wa ala, sah? طيب. So his blood, just because it was spilt for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't become pure because it was spilt for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the one that is mathalan murdered because he's trying to rob someone, his blood comes out although he was trying to commit a sin, sah? Lakin the blood is huwa, ad-dam huwa. The blood of the human, whether he's the shaheed or whether he's the person that his blood came out for other reasons, then that is exactly the same. Number 3, the third delete, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ would carry on and would always be praying in their wounds with blood coming out of their body. And there was no command from the Prophet ﷺ for him to wash or for them to wash this najasah. And number 3, al-aslu fil ashya'i al-tahara. Al-aslu fil ashya'i al-tahara. طيب. على أي حال, there's that khilaf that is strong among Ahlul Ilm, and it is a khilaf that is obviously acceptable. Therefore, as for students of knowledge, when they're discussing these masail, they discuss it from a knowledge-based point of view. يعني هذا, that is the ruling of this, is this because of this hadith or because of this narration. And then you say, la, like in this hadith doesn't show this, it points towards this. A healthy discussion or a healthy debate. And that is important for the student of knowledge, because that's where you practice what you've learned in usul al-fiqh. And that is where you practice the dalalatul al-alfad. What do the wordings show? Also the mafhum, what does this hadith show? طيب. Lakin, if it passes that boundary and it moves to a level of la hada sahib al-hawa and kada, that's not from the etiquettes of a student of knowledge. That is not how a student of knowledge should be talking about al-masail al-ilmiyah. Then the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَعَنْ أَثَرِ اسْتِجْمَارٍ أي وَيُعْفَى عَنْ أَثَرِ اسْتِجْمَارٍ. Also what you're pardoned from is, or the person is pardoned from, the traces of the impurity after using stones or tissues and so on. And this is based on the mas'ala that in Bab al-Istinja we talked about istijma and istijmar. Istinja is when a person uses water. And istijmar is when a person uses anything other than water. Now when a person uses other than water, they say that there's always going to be traces of najasa left on the body. Lakin yu'fa an hada, because it is a small amount and it is pardoned. Obviously after the tissue and the stones or whatever is being used, any traces that are left, then that is pardoned. Naam. Then the Shaykh says, rahimahullah, وَلَا يُنْجَسُ الْآدَمِيُّ بِالْمَوْتِ. طيب. Now he's going to move on to al-tahirat, al-a'yan al-tahira. Number 1, al-adami. Note, he says, وَلَا يَنْجُسُ, the adami does not become impure bil-maut, because of maut, or upon death, the person doesn't become impure. قال جل وعلا وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah Jalla wa Ala mentions that He has honored Bani Adam, so the Bani Adam is not najis. Also the Bani Adam is created from something which is pure, which is a sperm, al-mani, that we shall see. Also the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-mu'min la yanjus. La yanjus. Al-mu'min is not, or does not become impure. So for this, a person can say Al-mu'min, sahih, that's the believer. Like in the ulama, they say Al-mafhum huna la umuma lahu. The mafhum in this hadith, it doesn't take a generality, and it doesn't mean that other than the mu'min yanjus. Other than the mu'min yanjus. As for إنما المشركون najis, the verse that describes them as najis, that is najasa ma'nawiyya. Najasa ma'nawiyya, exactly what we said for the khamr not long ago. وَغُجَّسَ فَهْجُرْ, and also the idols, their najasa is najasa ma'nawiyya. طيب. ولا ما لا نفس له سائلة ومتولد أو متولد من طاهر. طيب ولا ما لا نفس أي also bloodless insects are pure. ما لا نفس أي الدم هنا. You know where it says he's talking about the different types of things that are pure. The first one was the Adami. The second is that which doesn't have blood. ما لا نفس أي دم له سائلة. That is the blood found in, or the bloodless insects are pure. If it is created from something that is pure, if it comes from something that is pure. So for example, all types of insects like flies, spiders, scorpions, lice, ants, bees, beetles, all of these animals are pure. Why? Because they don't have, if you kill it, there's no blood, it doesn't have blood running through its veins. ما لا نفس له سائلة. متولد من طاهر, يعني that is created by, or that comes from, or that is born from something that is tahir. Like there are some sort of animals, like for example cockroaches found in toilets, for example, they say that is born from najis, something that is najis. So insects, ما لا نفس له سائلة. And the evidence for that is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, إذا وقع الذباب في إناء أحدكم فليغمسه ثم لينزعه. If a fly goes into the drink of one of you, let him dip all of it. فإن في إحدى جناحيه داء والأخرى شفاء. There's the cure on one side, and there's the disease on one. So in order to cancel it out, the Prophet ﷺ commanded us to put all of it inside. And if it was najis, would the Prophet ﷺ command us to take it out? La, it would have commanded us ﷺ to throw the whole thing away. Because obviously as soon as the fly falls into the cup, then it dies. So that's why when you take it out, it's dead. Now whether you want to drink it or not, هذا شيء آخر, that's something else. Lakin, the mahal shahid is that it is pure, and if it wasn't pure, then the Prophet ﷺ would not commanded us to take it out.
You know that Masala prior when you mentioned al-mu'min,
لا ينجس.
isn't that مخصوص, isn't that khas, rather than said al-amha umumahu?
نعم, they say the mafhum لا عموم له هنا. لا, المؤمن meaning, like we can't, for example, we can't say the Muslim ينجس. ما يقال المسلم ينجس. لكن المؤمن, the siyaq that it was in was the hadith of who? Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. And the context of the hadith explains a lot. So Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lekin he left him and he didn't want to be with him. Why? Because he was on janaba. So because he was on janaba, it doesn't mean that person becomes najis now. Like even if we say the kafir comes in, the kafir is taken out because of that hadith, then the other umumat, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, and the fact that the kafir himself is created from something that is pure.
Well, the law itself, there's no denial that shows that it is
The siyaq, lakin. The siyaq. The siyaq is one of the strongest forms of murajjihat. طيب, وما نفس, نعم. So that's the second thing that is tahir. And the third, وَبَوْلُ مَا يُؤْكَلُ لَحْمُهُ وَغَوْثُهُ وَمَنِيَّتُهُ. طيب. The third thing that is pure from the tahirat is the urine of the animal that is permissible to eat. The urine of the animal that is pure, permissible to eat, وَغَوْثُهُ, and its tongue, and its sperm, if you like to call it. So these things from the animal that is pure, that is permissible to eat, then it is tahir. And the evidence is the hadith of al-Ughaniyin, those men that had bacteria, and they came to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, and they asked for a cure, and he told them to mix the urine and the milk of the camel. And if it was najis, then the Prophet ﷺ would not have commanded them would not have commanded them to use it as what? As dawa. نعم. طيب. نعم. ومني آدمي. And also the fourth thing is the sperm of the Adami. The sperm of the Adami. Due to the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, وَلَقَدْ رَأَيْتُنِي أَفْرُكُهُ مِنْ ثَوْبِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم فَرْكًا فَيُصَلِّي بِهِ. So she says that she would rub it from the thawb of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it being dry, and being on the thawb of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that she would rub it off, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would pray in that garment. فَيُصَلِّي فِيهِ, and he would pray in that garment. So how many have we got from the tahirat? Huh? 4. طيب. وَغُطُوبَةُ فَرْجِ الْمَرْءِ. Lakin there's something else which is similar to many, which is al-wadi and al-madhi. These two are najis. The najasat are to come. ما دون ما في خلقة طاهر وسباع وبهائم طيب نجسة. نعم. Al-wadi is a substance that comes out after the urine or just before the urine, and it is a sign of illness. And the second is al-madhi. Madhi comes out of the human during sexual arousement. Ali radiallahu anhu mentions kuntu rajulan madha'an. He radiallahu anhu used to get a lot of madhi. Then he asked one of the companions, Miqdam, to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded him, Miqdam yani, to wash the place where the madhi touches. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded Miqdam to wash where the place where the madhi touches. Why didn't Ali ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? لمكانه مني. Why? Because he was shy to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that trait or the attribute of being shy is something that is almost lost in Western society. It is something that is lost in Western society. Rather everywhere nowadays. Everywhere. So here we have a companion, Ali radiallahu anhu, mujahid, and has so many virtues, yet he was too shy to ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So shyness is not blameworthy. Shyness is a really good one. It's a good trait to have. Like nowadays, it can be made out to be as if it is something that a person should be shy of itself, to be shy of being shy. And it is something that is blameworthy. And someone would say, لا حياة في الدين. هذا خطأ. There's no shyness in the religion. That is wrong. لا حياة في العلم. أو لا حياء عفوا. لا حياء في العلم. There's no shyness when it comes to seeking knowledge and asking. Like a person being shy is something that is praiseworthy. Men and women. Men and women. Like especially more so in what? In women. In women. Now that is normal, that's considered normal in Muslim civilizations, in Muslim communities, throughout Islam, the Muslim history. Like nowadays, because of our mixing with those who have no haya, then we've been affected. Nas'al al-afiyah. Number 5, غطوبة فرج المرأة, the moist or the wetness that comes out from the vagina or the private parts of the woman. Now that is considered pure. And that is considered pure because it doesn't come out from the point of the urine, it comes out from the point of where the baby comes out of. So it is connected to the womb. So that is considered as pure. Do they have to? Does it nullify the wudu? Who says it nullifies the wudu? Put your hand up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Who says it doesn't nullify the wudu? 1, 2, 3, 4. Lesh, why doesn't it nullify the wudu? Because I said it's not najis. طيب, Abdillah? Where it comes from? More min as-sabilayn?
The sabil is talking about where the urine comes out. It doesn't come out from where the urine comes from. The sabil is talking about the najis.
Yeah, but if I didn't say that just now, you wouldn't have known, would you? Where it comes out of.
No, I did.
that here, what is not being talked about is not in terms of whether you make wudu from it or not. The fact that it is tahir has its own ruling, meaning does it need to be washed and so on and so forth. That's different. As for does it nullify the wudu, when we're talking about nawaqid al-wudu, we said that كل ما خرج من السبيلين ينقض الوضوء. And then remember that we talked about some fuqaha say as the najasat that come out of the private parts nullify wudu. As for the tahirat, the things that are tahir that come out of the private parts, they don't nullify wudu. Like we said that the strong opinion, wallahu a'lam, was what? كل ما خرج من السبيلين. Remember the example of the baby. If a baby comes out, is she still on wudu? Mathalan, there's no haid. There's no dam nifas. And the baby, khalas. And no cesarean. Baby comes out, does she need to make wudu? نعم ليش؟ خرج من السبيلين شيء. Something come out of it, which is what? A baby. وهذا البيبي هذا البيبي وهذا البيبي طاهر وهذا البيبي طاهر. طيب wudu تفرج المرأة. So it's not connected to whether it is what? It nullifies wudu or not. طيب, the sixth one وسؤر الهرة وسؤر الهرة وما دونها في الخلقة طاهر. And the leftover of the cat or anything that is smaller than it in terms of creation, in terms of how it is, then فهو طاهر. Then it is what? It is طاهر due to the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إنها ليست بالنجس إنما إنها من الطوافين عليكم. إنما هي من الطوافين عليكم. Cat, do we mean a predator? How many times have you heard a tiger being called a cat? Like at home, I have a cat at home. We only hear cats or predators like lions and tigers being called cats on the wildlife shows. So, like in cat meaning those four-legged creatures that stay in the homes. Naam. So their leftovers are not najis. Abu Qatada or Ibn Qatada radiallahu anhu was, he saw a cat in his house and he started to give it something to drink from one of the vessels that he was using, and his wife asked, or there was a woman that was nearby and she asked, one of the relatives or so, she was surprised, and he mentioned this hadith that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إنها ليست بالنجس إنما هي من الطوافين عليكم. إنما هي من الطوافين عليكم. وما دونها في الخلقة. And that which is smaller than it in the creations, in the size of it. For example, what can be considered? Hamster. What else? Rabbit, if anyone does keep it. نعم إنما هي من الطوافين. Lakin if we say that the illah is that it is what? At-tawaf or at-titwaf, the fact that it is always in and outside of the house, then it's not connected to the size. It's not connected to the size. Rats and mice. And mice doesn't contain it. Like, they're both najis. They both make the place najis, huh? So like إنما هي من الطوافين عليك. It doesn't actually do tawaf around us. It pesters us. It pesters people. It's not. إنما هي من الطوافين, in and out and so on and so forth. With permission.
So if we don't consider the size, are we then saying donkeys, mules and things like that?
Like donkeys, that is to come. That is to come. طيب. So he mentioned 6 things that are pure. Then he's now going to move on to asnaful najis, things that are najis or najasat. And number 1 is siba'u wa siba'u al-baha'imi wa at-tayri. Predatory animals and predatory birds. They are, number 1, considered najis. Tigers, lions, wolves, leopards, these sorts of animals are considered najis. Also, wa siba'u min at-tayri, number 2, predators that are birds. For example, eagles, falcons, vultures, they're considered what? they're considered najis. Unless what? They are used for hunting. Unless they are used for hunting. طيب. طيب. والحمار الأهلي. The third one is the himar of the ahli, the donkey. And the Prophet ﷺ said in Khaybar, إن الله ورسوله, the Messenger ﷺ, Allah Jalla wa Ala, and the Messenger ﷺ, ينهانكم عن لحوم الحمر فإنها رجس. رجس أي najis. So the Prophet ﷺ described it to be najis, the himar. والبغل منه, and the mule, that which is born from the himar al-ahli. He says najisun rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'a. There's another opinion that it is pure. It is pure because the Prophet ﷺ would ride the donkey and his companions would ride the donkey, and the Prophet ﷺ did not clarify to any of them and specify that they should what? That they should wash it. He did not ﷺ explain to them that they should wash it. And obviously the animal, there's going to be the sweat of the animal, the saliva of the animal when you're getting on and off and so on. So those that say that it is not najis, rather it is tahir. Fadda. Do your own bath. Wallahu a'lam, lakin the opinion that says it is not najis seems stronger. The fact that, and one of the strongest evidences is the fact that damu shaheed. The shaheed, what is the difference between the person, يعني the human being, مثلا الآن, if there's two people next to us, one of them goes out for jihad fi sabilillah, and he dies, and his blood is pure. When does his blood become pure? Is it the moment that he gets killed fi sabilillah? طيب, and another person, مثلا, he dies in a car crash, and we have to bury him. There's blood in this one and there's blood in both of them, صح? طيب, what is the حد الفاصل? Where can we say, and bear in mind there's ijma' or shibul ijma' on the damu shaheed. لأن the Prophet said, idfinuhum fi dima'ihim, bury them in their, نعم, in their blood. Rijs, صح, like we talked about what rijs means. Rijs, a najis it could mean, like najis what? Najis ma'nawi. صح, like because things are mentioned next to one another, it doesn't mean they take the same ruling.
You say that the ahkam of the shaheed are all different, so you'd say that it would be a different blood because the shaheed is la yughsal. So
صح, لكن لا يغسل, صحيح, لا يغسل, he's not to be washed. لكن that hukum of him not being washed is a hukum khariji. It's something that is outside of the body of that human being. This one is to be washed and this one is to be not to be washed. Not because of najasah. Like the believer is to, مثلا, a Muslim dies now. We knew that he made ghusl. He went to pray Jum'ah. After Jum'ah he dies. Huwa tahir, صح? He is pure. He's not in janaba, nothing. He's pure. He had ghusl half an hour before Jum'ah. He dies. Do we still not wash him? خلاص, لأن that is hukum ta'abbudi. Why? For purification purposes as well, obviously. Lakin the Muslim doesn't get, the shaheed doesn't get buried. لأن the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم commanded that. وهكذا. The Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم commanded. And dam masfuh means the animal, the blood that comes out of the animal. The animal that comes out of the animal. The blood that comes out of, what did I say? The blood that comes out of the animal after it being slaughtered. Lakin don't forget that even the blood that remains in the veins of the animal that is slaughtered, after it's slaughtered, that is still what? Pure. Go on. صح, لا, say that again. يحكون الإجماع. يحكون الإجماع في المذاهب.
اتفق المذاهب وأيضا حكي الإجماع عن ابن عبد البر.
صح, لكن نقل الإجماع itself, نقل الإجماع, when a عالم does do نقل الإجماع, it doesn't mean that يعني مثلا there could be a possibility where he hasn't مطلع على مخالف. That is why they say that one of the scholars that has the most daqiq ibara, or the most precise ibara, is Ibn Qudama in Mughni. He says, لا نعلم فيه خلافا, or لا أعلم فيه خلافا. I do not know of any khilaf. So later on, if someone does bring khilaf, they can't say لا أنت أخطأت. لأن he said لا أعلم فيه خلافا.
And also the same ijma' that was quoted by Imam Ahmad is around the same wording as well. He doesn't actually say that there is ijma', he says I don't know any difference.
نعم, he says لا, Imam Ahmad says رحمه الله من زعم الإجماع فقد كذب. لعل الناس قد اختلفوا. It may be that the people have differed. So he's saying that it is difficult to know the ijma'. He's not negating the fact that there is ijma', and the evidence is that Imam Ahmad himself, he uses ijma' as dalil itself. Naam. So it's possible that they can say, sometimes a lot of ijma'at as well, they're not taken into consideration because there's the mukhalif. There's the mukhalif. Naam. والبغل نجس. Naam. So that is the last mas'ala of the next mas'ala, or the last chapter is Bab al-Hayd, inshallah. With regards to washing the najasah, do you only need to wash the part affected by the najis or the whole garment, vessel? As for the najasah of the walgh of the al-kalb, then the whole vessel needs to be washed. The inside of that whole vessel needs to be washed. As for other najasats, like on the garment, then the part of the najasah needs to be removed. So, مثلا, if the arm of the thawb has a hijab, has a najasah on it, or the side of the hijab, then that part needs to be washed. With the mas'ala of cleaning najis with water, does this link to al-miyah al-thalatha, water is of three types? Can any type of water be used to clean najis according to the madhab? According to the madhab, the water was what? Ma'un tahurun tahirun najis. Najis obviously you can't be used to purify. Tahir, the ta'rif of it is al-tahiru fi nafsihi ghayru mutahhir, lakin it doesn't purify. Therefore it can't be used. Lakin al-tahur is what? Al-tahir fi nafsihi and yutahhir, it purifies. Is the matter of ghudubatul farj al-mar'a linked to many al-adami? La, it is not linked to the many of the adami. The many of the adami is specific, is separate, and it is pure. And the ghudubatul farj al-mar'a, the moist or the wetness that comes out of the private part of the woman, is something that is different. So it is not connected. What about using alcohol wipes or disinfectant wipes for purpose of medical needs? Khalas, if a person can't find anything else, then na'am, they can use it. And it also goes back to the same khilaf that we mentioned earlier on. Regarding blood being najis or not, if the ayah clearly states that it is najis, should there be any room for second view it not being najis? Regarding the Sahaba with blood on their clothes, wasn't it a concession? The fact that the ayah is clear, that's where the khilaf is. The khilaf is on whether the ayah actually states that or not. It doesn't mean that the ayah is, because the fuqaha or the ulama in general, if there's a specific dalil, they will not go against the specific dalil or the dalil that is clear cut. They wouldn't go against it. Now they're not going against the dalil because they're saying it points to something else. So the question is confused regarding the donkey, eagles and predatory animals, dogs being najis, does this mean touching them requires washing? Okay, or their saliva? على أي حال, with regards to the kalb, the fuqaha they talk about, or the ulama in general, what is najis? Is it the hair of the dog? Is it what part of the dog is najis? The part is the saliva. That part of the dog is what needs to be washed 7 times, first and foremost. And this is a question, and obviously I missed it out. What needs to be washed 7 times is that which it touches with its what? Saliva. As for its urine, its feces, and all of this, that comes out, or that takes the najasa al-mutawassita, that needs to be washed, and there's no specific amount that it needs to be washed, as long as it is no longer there. صح? As for touching the dog, if the dog, مثلا you're on the bus and the dog touches you, that is not najis. You don't have to wash your garment 7 times, and it is not najis, according to a lot of the fuqaha. The same goes for other animals, lions and so on and so forth. If you happen to be in a safari and you touch a lion, then it is not najis. You don't have to wash your hands 7 times, and you don't have to, well, if you make it out alive, that is, if you don't, you don't have to wash, lakin is najis. Naam. So the other opinion on the masala is that it is not najis, that they are not najis. And I don't go into a lot of the masail that we're not exactly going to come across. A lot of the masail, I don't mention different khilaf in it. Only those masail that may come across, that we may come across.
Is there a dabit for transferring of najasa?
A dabit for?
Transferring of najasa.
Istihala.
Transferring of najasa. يعني from one, يعني انتقال يعني. It's a better word.
انتقال نجاسة. يعني النجاسة goes through Bluetooth. لا, I don't understand how najasa can transfer.
If I touch something that's najis, when does najasa transfer to me? Exactly where, right?
لا, the athar najasa, if you can see it, then it is najis. Like مثلا you touch the hair of a dog, خلاص. It's not najis. When you look at your hand, it's not najis. Like مثلا you touch the urine of a najis, you touch it, والعياذ أكرمكم الله والعياذ بالله, and then you lift your hand up, the najasa is there. He's putting his lisan in there, you can see the najis. Najasa is ayn, something that you can see. What was the ta'rif of ayn? كل عين يجب تطهر منها. The ayn, that thing which you can see.
So could you say about it is mad? For example, if I touch a dry piece of dung, for example.
That dry piece of dung for an animal that is haram, that is najis.
So if I touch it,
Then you need to wash your hand. No. Even if there's not a thing, you need to wash your hand, because it is najis. Yani you've touched najasa.
what about the dog? The hair of the dog?
The hair of the dog is not najis.
What about
The body of the dog is not najis.
it's not najis.
No, the body of the dog is not najis. So if it touches you, I said if it touches you on the bus, you don't have to, or if it touches you in general, or even if you touch it, it's not najis. Obviously you're going to wash your hand anyway, if you're a Muslim, lakin it's not najis. لحظة مبارك.
I want to ask, I don't know if I've heard this from somewhere else, but regarding vinegar, for example.
Regarding?
Vinegar. So if a non-believer makes it, and he goes out of way to manufacture it.
Naam, with vinegar, again I forgot to mention that masala as well. With vinegar, if it is made on its own, if it changes and becomes vinegar on its own, then they say it's permissible. Lakin if a person changes it from alcohol to vinegar, then it is not permissible. Lakin the masala that you mentioned is if a dhimmi changes it. A dhimmi, because for him it's permissible. The dhimmi, for alcohol in his diyana, in his deen, it is permissible for him. So if he changes it, then it is permissible to eat, they say. Hence, some of the scholars say the vinegar that is imported from non-Muslim countries to Muslim countries is permissible, because the one that would have changed it from the takhallala min khamr ila vinegar to vinegar would have been what?
So with the vinegar here, would that take the same morning?
It would probably take the same morning now. Probably take the same morning.
What if you can find the vinegar that's been done in a halal way?
Vinegar is okay if it's been done in a halal way.
Most of the vinegars you buy
Naam, lakin they say that the ones that would have been doing it would have been those that are permissible for them to do. Mubarak, go on. Go on.
You know, with regards to the share of the dog and what is the rule on it? So you touch the dog and you find a rule on it. Would that?
مثلا if it's raining outside and you get on a bus,
Then that's the dog be mad. But if you
that'd be what? Ma'lum.
yeah, because obviously it's the water for rain that we before. So if it wasn't raining, could be the possibility that the one of the dog was on its own self.
Itself, it's true, sahih. Then you would wash your hand. But you're not sure if it is that.
Then become mughallala.
If you're sure, مثلا if you see the dog licking himself, صح, you would wash it 7 times. Or you'd clean it. Lakin, if you're not sure, then it's something that you're not sure of.
Then, you know, with regards to the Mas'ala of the ijma', could the ijma' be from one asr? So, obviously, because it's asr min al-usul, so perhaps the ijma' that was quoted at the time was from that particular asr, and then after that ijma' ceased. Could that also be a reason why there was sort of
Meaning that the time of the Sahaba, that time of the Sahaba, it was permissible to pray in blood, and it wasn't najis, صح? And then اتفق العلماء على بعد ذلك. ربما.
Doesn't there have to be delil for ijma' to occur?
نعم, every ijma' is مستند على دليل. Every ijma' is based on دليل.
So if the ijma' يخالف دليل واضح, هل يعتبر الإجماع؟
If it's impossible, ijma' ما يخالف. The concept that ijma' contradicts dalil, it is not possible, because that ijma' would not exist if that dalil was there.
Except for the one that believes blood is pure.
Naam, so the ones that believe blood is pure, due to other evidence, they say that ijma' is not, but they're not saying that there is ijma', but we're not going to take the ijma'. They're saying that ijma' doesn't exist. So there's a difference between saying there's ijma' in this, but we're going to take this opinion, and saying that ijma' is غير صحيح, ما ثبت. Two different masail. And a lot of masail you'll find that they're on that qabil, they're from that angle. You won't find the alim saying أجمع العلماء على كذا لكن قول راجح هو كذا. Impossible. Lakin they will question the actual ijma', the existence of the actual ijma'.
In this section it talks about those things that are pure. You mentioned that وَلَا مَا لَا يُنَسَّ لَهُ سَائِلٌ. Is that any cold-blooded animal, or is that like insects?
It mainly refers to insects, because that is the animal that can be classed as لا نفس له, it doesn't have blood, bees and so on. Lakin, what other animal could come into it? Because every single animal is different to that. It goes into one of the other categories. What does سؤر الكلب or سؤر cat's leftovers mean? The cat drinking from, مثلا, there being a pan or pot and the cat drinking from it, whatever is left over. Isn't there an opinion that if you touch a dog with a wet hand, it takes the same wording as the dog transferred najis? We took this opinion in Umdatul Ahkam with another sheikh. Is this a valid? There's an opinion that the whole dog is najis. Every part of the dog is najis. Just like every part of the predatory animal, like lion, tiger, and so on. Qawl that exists. Allah Ta'ala a'lam wa ahkamu billahi tawfiq.
وقل رب زدني